Hello, you're watching KZ's Local Time. My name is Dina Tiltaeva. In this program, we meet people from different corners of the world who came to Kazakhstan for various reasons, but they all share one common thing, their love of this country. The guest of our today's show will be Mohamed Fazir. Helping companies to expand their business and exploring new areas is Fazir's job. He's a supply chain specialist. This work involves a lot of multitasking and can sometimes be quite stressful. In lay terms, it is all about doing global procurement, delivery and manufacture at the same time.
My profession, I'm in sales marketing, business development. So what we do is that we find projects which needs support in terms of products and services. So we have a global setup around the world, and whatever the resources that is required, we procure, do the supply for the companies here. This is, so I'm working for them, and previously I have worked in different sectors in Kazakhstan. When I came here, I used to work in the freight forwarding. It was a service industry. In logistics, we find out, because Kazakhstan is a landlocked country, and transportation is one of the most biggest challenging thing to do, because you don't have sea. There it's easy to, so you are a landlocked country from Russia to China. So the infrastructure of transportation is developing at this moment.
But a career in business wasn't always his lifelong dream. When he was young, like many children, Fazir wanted to be a doctor. Later on, he realized that not everyone can do this hard and responsible work. So an interest in commercial matters was sparked.
I want to become an accountant, but then I got into sales marketing because that was more interesting for me, because it gives you a chance to move around with different people, different companies, culture, and travel around especially. So this is something which was interesting. So when you love to do what you like, and so I think at this moment I'm in sales marketing and also on the supply chain. So this is not what I really wanted to do as a kid, but when I understood more about the business and commercial sections, what opportunities you can bring, so of course then I chose this.
Fazir speaks of his projects as babies that should be brought up and matured into grown-up adults to move up independently on their own. To do so, he believes that proper staff training should be in place, and he has some experience of that too. He speaks about it very passionately.
I used to work in Astana as a branch director, so we had people who are out of the university, fresh people. So they have no previous experience working in a company. So what I did was training them in sales, marketing, in the business, in the industry. And when I left the company today, it's run by the people who came without any experience, and today they are the branch managers, marketing managers.
Fazir comes from an amazingly beautiful island country shaped like a teardrop, and often called the Pearl of the Indian Ocean. Perhaps you already understood that this is Sri Lanka, whose history dates back to over 3,000 years. The country is relatively small. I haven't been there yet, but after I talked with Fazir and watched a few videos online, I can see why people choose it as their favorite holiday destination. This island is inhabited by some rare animals that we see only in documentaries and read about in books.
It's very popular for tourism, so people keep coming. We had been having tourism since the 1960s, I would say. Since that, the tourism industry has been developing. And if I am to explain to you, if you see Sri Lanka, the map is something like the palm, and each part of the island has its own beach, from, we would say, virgin beach, where no people are there, but you still can have it, and to beaches where you can do surfing, snorkeling, underground swimming, relax, different kinds of beaches at different locations. So people can actually choose, instead of going to one location, they can choose the type of beach they want to stay.
The words tea and Ceylon have definitely become an almost set expression in many languages. Naturally, the first thing that springs to our mind when we hear about Sri Lanka is its tea varieties. Sri Lanka used to be known as Ceylon. The Apparently, all people living on the island are connoisseurs of the drink that we in Kazakhstan consume in abundance.
We have tea plantations, we call it, or tea gardens at different levels in the island, because the central part of the Sri Lanka is more hill. So the tea grown in that part, the taste is different to the tea grown at the bottom part of the island. And again, valuable stones, sapphire stones, which are done mining under the ground, blue color sapphire stones. And of course, exotic fruits. And also we have a, like in Kazakhstan you have horses, we have elephants.
Fazir's family is fairly big. He has 3 brothers and an elder sister. One of his brothers, a doctor, has studied in Russia, and the other 2 brothers are engineers working in Sri Lanka. Interestingly, Fazir was the first member of the family who actually traveled abroad job-wise.
So I had my basic education in Sri Lanka, studied, and we have a very ordinary family, as I told you earlier. I lived in Singapore for around 6 months when I started working at the age of 21, 22, something like that. I lived there in Singapore, Malaysia, and then I moved to back to Sri Lanka and started working there.
When Fazir worked for a Singaporean company, he came to Kazakhstan only briefly for 2 weeks. And before he knew, he so far lived here for 8 years. Fazir's tangible plan to study abroad was supposed to take him in an absolutely different direction. At that time, he hadn't even planned of getting a new job, let alone working away from home for such a long time.
I always say, as a part of Jokos, I came to Kazakhstan by mistake. I was supposed to go to Canada for my education, and one day I think I was 22 years old, 21, 22. And I already applied for the university in Canada, and I was waiting for the evaluation. So one Sunday I was reading a newspaper, and there was a company, Singaporean company setting up in Kazakhstan.
Fazir decided to give it a go and was offered a new job. His new boss very soon said that he wanted to talk with Fazir and even invited him for a dinner. That was unexpected for the new employee, to say the least. Fazir was sure that something had gone wrong from the very beginning.
He said, come over. And I was sitting with him. I'm going to give you a big opportunity. He said, what is that? You are going to go to Kazakhstan. I was shocked. And then I came here for 2 weeks, and because my visa, I had to get my visa to Kazakhstan back in 2006. So that's like almost 8 years ago. I came for 2 weeks. 2 weeks became 2 months, and that was summer period in Almaty. And I couldn't understand anything here because I was not talking English. I was not talking Russian, and people are not talking English much. So food-wise also it was different. And 2 months, and then I went back to Sri Lanka, and that is how I fell in love with this country.
Thus began Fazir's adventurous life in Kazakhstan. He hadn't known anything about Central Asia, but as strange as it might sound now, he'd had a dream in which he saw a blue flag and a feeling that his stay in Kazakhstan would be a lot longer than he had previously planned. The language barrier made the experience a bit difficult in the beginning. It had to rely on people's help before he became more or less fluent in Russian.
I think what I liked about was, although it was more foreign for me, this country had this multicultural thing about Asian to European, everything mixed together here. Because you have part of the Russian culture. At the same time, you have the part of Kazakh culture, which still has the values of family values, and normally at the same time the influence of Russian culture in terms of let's say food behaviors and the lifestyle, everything. So everything is mixed more or less, so you have the chance to choose what and how to live.
Going to the gym is his integral part of life. He's been into football and bodybuilding since the age of 17. He likes lifting weights and has an on and off relationship with sports. The coach chooses a special program for his trainee and decides that just under 40 kilogram weight is normal for Fazir. But for Fazir, workout is not only about getting fit and physically strong. It's also a way to get to know people, and in fact, he met some of his friends in the gym.
And you feel like you get the chance to socialize with different people who come here. There are locals, foreigners, at different age levels, starting from teenage up to 60, 65 years, and they have different programs. So it's a nice way of spending your leisure time apart from people coming to Kazakhstan to work. I think from man's point of view, or even from women's, sports is very, very important for us to. I always feel like sports is to release your negative energy out of it. We have different ways of stress and different ways of releasing our stress. So doing sports actually keeps you much healthier, having you more stronger.
To the question why he gets so attracted to Almaty, he says that the city has its own, barely perceptible, but strong vibes that literally keep you forever in love with it. He can't really put a finger on this, but says it's the result of a combination of things. One of them is socializing with people.
You get to have, picnics and also evening events, parties, and things like that, yeah. We have a huge international community, and especially having programs and introduction like this, this gives a lot of exposure for foreigners who don't know about Kazakhstan, and having it in English medium has the chance to promote it not only through television but also through internet. You have a lot of social network sites, and when you introduce look, Kazakhstan is not what you see or hear, but actually there are people living.
Now, when he's comfortably adapted to local life, he looks back on the time shortly after arrival. Today, some of his stories seem funny, but back then, everything he saw around himself was new and unexplored. He picked up a lot of his Russian when he spoke with taxi drivers. Actually, during taxi rides, he kept hearing a lot about some celebrity going by the name Anecdote.
Do you know Anecdote? I said, who is that?
Who's Anecdote?
Who's Anecdote? He's so popular everywhere.
He's probably from India, maybe.
Once one of the taxi guys said, yes, like there is an anecdote. And I'm thinking, I heard this name so many times, he must be some very popular person. And then I understood it means like this. So, this kind of very local, interesting jokes about our humor, I would say. So you have to understand the humor in the same way to be able to.
Coming to Kazakhstan was a leap into the unknown, but I understand that by character Fazir has never been a conventional person and rarely preferred to go along traditional pathways. He likes taking up challenges. The first 2 weeks in Kazakhstan 8 years ago didn't deter him. Contrary to that, he finds this stretch of life to be a very interesting and useful experience.
I think I became more confident. I remember when I first came to Astana, 2.5, 3 weeks, I was not going out anywhere. I was staying in my apartment. There were 56 channels and I could only understand 2 channels, what was BBC in English and Fashion TV. The rest of that, and then once I opened my window and it was snowing heavily, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here? What made me come here? And then I told myself, if I'm gonna be successful in doing what I'm doing right now, I think I would even go to any part of the world and be so. This challenge kept me interesting, and then when you see results for whatever the efforts that you put, it's a big satisfaction. You cannot count with money.
Even climatically, Fazir is now more used to our Kazakh weather. Home will always be home, but for some reason when he's in Sri Lanka on vacations, he's haunted by the thoughts of wishing to return to his Almaty flat. And once he's in Almaty, he will text his mom saying, "I'm home." You've been watching KZ Local Time. Goodbye.